Vani Kaushal will be in conversation. Miss Vani Kaushal will be in conversation with Suhail, Mathur and Affan, Yesvi. Vani Kaushal, the Times of India and the Financial Express में business journalist बनने के बाद fiction writing में इन्होंने हाथ आजमाया. वानी author, journalist, columnist and curator भी है. उनका लिखा romantic thriller Second Later आसमान की ऊंचाइयों को छू रहा है. वानी कौशल ने सिर्फ तारीफें बटोरी हैं. इनका एक पॉपुलर सेलिब्रिटी और एंकर साइरस ब्रोचा के शो में साइरस ब्रोचा सेज में भी इनको बेहद सराहा गया है. मंच आपका है वानी कौशल.
You have the mic. Yes. Mic on.
Hello, good afternoon. So we are here for the graveyard. I think this is like everybody's hungry and, it's a challenge, for me to make it as interesting for you all as possible. First of all, thank you to the Chandigarh Literary Society for inviting me here for this very, very interesting session. I have here with me Suhail, who is also my literary agent, and Affan, who I have known briefly, but you have such an interesting profile. And now I have a list of questions which I have for them. And the session name, as you know, is super interesting. It's called Book to Bestseller. So we are all ready to begin. And I would first, begin by asking Suhail this question, and then the same question to Affan. The title of this session is Book to Bestseller. Are bestsellers born or made? And I ask this question because we often wonder, you must have heard, leaders are born or made. So do we spend money and create a bestseller, or do we have the content which makes a book a bestseller? What do you think, Suhail?
Thank you so much for the question, Vani. I think you mentioned a very interesting thing before that people might be a little hungry. So it is the perennial battle between food for hunger versus food for thought. And food for thought is something that we can offer at this point of time. And a very interesting question in that regard about books being made into bestsellers or being born as bestsellers. I think there are two components to a book. One is, of course, what you write, and the second is then what you write, how do you sell that? So those are the two components. Now, a book, as we know, or a movie, as we know, will only be certified as a hit or a bestseller if the collections are there. If the number of people who buy a book reach a certain number, then it is called a bestseller, technically. And the numbers for that also keep on changing, year after year. So initially, a few years ago, 10,000 copies or more was a bestseller. The number then reduced to 5,000. Nowadays, 2,000 copies or more is a bestseller. And if you're able to sell even 1,000 copies now, the book is considered to have done well, because the publisher who's bringing out, say, an initial print run of, say, 1,100 copies has either sold the first print or is about to sell the first print. So, what is happening is that with more and more people writing books, more and more publishing houses coming into the fray, the yardstick of a bestseller, being a bestseller, is constantly changing. And it's nice because, we all write books. Everyone writes a book, with the purest of intentions to make it something which people remember them by. So, and when that happens, that definitely helps. Another game changer I feel in this entire process has been the advent of Amazon. So nowadays, books become instant bestsellers on online platforms. They can be bestsellers even before their release. And I think that's great because it gives a book a much needed push. Sometimes people may not be well versed with marketing and promotions, but Amazon over there helps you. Because when you go to the portal and you see that hot new releases or, books that you must buy, and you see that book, that is something Amazon is assisting you with, assisting the publisher with, assisting even the literary agent with, in ensuring that the book is selling. So I feel that when you're writing a book, don't write it with the intention that I have to make it a bestseller, because that is not in your control. You cannot determine whether you will make it a bestseller or not. That is for the audience to decide whether they'll make it a bestseller or not. What is in your control is writing a good book. You have to think, introspect and say that, am I writing a book which is good? Am I writing a book which is true to my heart? Am I writing a book which is up my alley? And if the answer to that is yes, then you're doing an honest job. But if you're falling for gimmicks, if you are writing books for the sake of being in a zone where, the current market stands, then that is not necessarily the best process. And I'll substantiate it with an example. There was a time in India when a lot of mythological books were ruling the roost, still do. But I remember reading a book, the first page of which was 326 BC, Lord Ram and Ravan were engaged in combat. Now, 326 BC was when Chandragupta Maurya was there in India. So the author had made Lord Ram and Ravan contemporaries of Chandragupta Maurya. So that is not only bad writing, that is also bad editing, because even the editor failed to notice that. So that is what happens when you write a gimmicky book. And as it so happened, the same writer connected with our literary agency later on, and we represented him. So this was a conversation that I had with him, and he was, fully understanding of the situation that, he had goofed up, which I think is also an art for people to acknowledge their mistake. But considering that we are talking about made or born, I think it's very important that you first write a good book that you believe in. And once that happens, then you have to promote it well. Because I always tell people that when you do your first book, you start off with a reader base of 0. You start off with a reader base of 0. Say, supposing even 200 people read your first book. The next time you're doing your book, you start off with a reader base of at least 200. The next time you do it, the number is 400, 500, 600, and keeps on growing. So you grow, your readers also grow, and your market also grows. So it is a gradual process. Sometimes people are able to reach that place earlier than others, but you have to be persistent, you have to be consistent. Write a book for the love of writing, not for the love of success. Because if you write for the love of writing, you will eventually turn into a success.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I think the gist of this answer is that one, you write it for the love of writing, for what you're passionate about, and not a gimmicky kind of a book. And secondly, what you said was promotion is equally important, because platforms like Amazon and all give you a very nice leg up to your whole this marketing process. Sure. And surely everybody needs that. Affan, what is your take on that? Books are bestsellers are born or made?
It's a joint effort.
And you're a publisher. You would know it better.
A book is a product of both the author and the publisher, and they have to work together in it. And we have seen that many good scripts get wasted, unfortunately. So marketing in today's time is very, very important. Without marketing, nothing can happen. And we have had the honor of having many bestsellers. Our ma'am is here. Sir is here. So bestsellers in different languages also vary. Like we have a book in Punjabi. We didn't have much sale in India, but we had a great sale in London, then in Canada. And I was very surprised with that. So in regional languages also there is a different graph to choose or to select what a bestseller is. Yes, name matters a lot, but more than name, the branding of the author and the content also matters. Their social media presence and how much they are willing to push the book, how much book tours, book signings they can do. Bestsellers are made, but then the script has to be there, the marketing has to be there, a good agent has to be there, a good publishing partner, a good marketing team has to be there, and it can be done.
Okay, Affan has actually given us a recipe, let me tell you all, because he says it's not just the content, you can have a different definition of bestseller depending on, what characteristics matter for you. But he says it's the content, it's the marketing, it's the social media presence, of course, it's the name, the whole brand or the author, what is the name of the author. So you've given us a very lovely recipe. Yeah?
No, but I think that is a valid point, the point that he made about regional books having a different yardstick of becoming a bestseller. And I remember, Affan, having this conversation with someone and, discussing the gap between romance books and mythological fiction. So if you've seen, romance books are usually thinner in nature, in size, and they're priced conducively. So, say a romance book would be priced at, for example, 200 rupees. And say a mythological book might be now priced at 399. So say it's priced at 400. Now the question is very simple. Say supposing 10 copies of the romance book have sold, 10 copies, right? And 6 copies of the mythological book have sold. Which one has done better? In one case you've sold 10, but you've done a total sale of 2,000 rupees. In the other case you've sold 6, but you've done a sale of 2,400 rupees. So which one has actually done better? So those are the things that also people need to take into account. So it's not always just the numbers, but it's also about the production cost, the MRP, and how much money or how much commercial benefit the publisher is making out of it.
Yes, and now we have seen the trend of e-books. So many people have started putting their books for free, and then they ask their friends to download it. Then they call themselves as bestsellers. So
वो e-books नहीं रहती, वो free books हो जाती.
हाँ, free books है. But उसको मतलब Amazon पे tag मिल जाता है as a bestseller. So that thing also has to be considered. There was a time when we rarely used to have bestsellers. Now everyone is trying to call themselves or brand themselves as bestseller.
Absolutely. So I think those are very pertinent points that you guys have made. And हम लोगों को यही लगता है, you know what, I'm talking about, like I'm just talking as an author. For us, it's like the market is very confusing. And I am looking forward to just removing this confusion for a lot of us here. And I think ये सारे points, जो भी यहाँ पे books लिखते हैं उनके लिए भी बहुत important हैं. So I actually divided this session into 3 sessions and I'm being very open about it because मैंने अपना book सुहेल को submit किया है, मेरा book सुहेल ने आगे दिया है, and you have somebody like Affan from the publishing community, तो कितना कुछ यहाँ पे आप लोगों को मिल सकता है. So Suhail, I go to you starting, you know, from the submission process. Yeah. I've written a nice book, I come to you, I submit my book and I'm like, Suhail, मैंने actually आपको लिखा था, मेरा book ना bestseller material है. तो you know, and I was like, the guy is seeing about 200 books a day, I guess. You know, you represent like 500 authors.
No.
So on
Not 500, come on.
800?
You're being too kind. 1300.
Okay. 500 ka, like groups bane hue hain. So guys, my fault, my bad. 1,300 authors sitting on the other side. When you look at a project, do you outright have a feeling like this is my next bestseller? Or how do you look at things?
Interesting question. Interesting. So, whenever I look at a project that comes to me, there are 2 things that I look at. Number 1, does the idea or the concept of the book appeal to me? That is very important, you know, because if the idea or the concept does not appeal to me, I would rather not take it up because I'll not feel one with it. And if I'm not feeling one with it, then I'll not be able to pitch it to the best of my abilities, which will be unfair to both our agency as well as to the author in the book. That's one. Secondly, once I like the book or I like what I'm reading, it does not really make any difference to me with respect to what a publisher will think about it. As most of us sitting over here know that the market for non-fiction is comparatively better than the market for fiction these days, yet we are one of India's very few agencies who actually take up fiction books, and the response is very simple. And you know, I was having a chat with my wife and also telling her that, you know, these concepts that the authors come up with are so amazing that how can you possibly not take it up? You know, I've always said that Indian authors, you know, never lack in creativity. They only lack in opportunity. And I think it's very important that we provide that opportunity, because why should my decision be based on what a third party is thinking? If I like it, then it is then my responsibility to find a suitable publisher who can bring it out. Otherwise, the job is very simple. You're taking up books which are readily sold. So what is your area of expertise? And I'll give you another example. So sometimes authors call me up and they say that, Suhail, can you pitch this book of ours? And I'm like, but aren't you working with XYZ literary agent? So they're like, yeah, we're working, but he said that, you know, this is a fiction, so we'll not work on this. When you write a non-fiction, then you come to us. So I never take up those books simply for 2 reasons. Number 1, if you are my author, then you are my author. You know, whatever you do, I will be a partner with you on it. Secondly, what happens is, as a lot of you will know, Gaurav is here and I is here, you are here. We have a very strong, vibrant WhatsApp group where we exchange ideas, where we discuss what are the things that can work, what we can write about. In that case, what will happen is that the person will do the book, take those ideas, and you know, when they have that more lucrative idea, they'll go and pitch it to their agency. So there isn't, you know, explicit trust, which is very important between an author and an agent. And the third thing is that it also feels a little unfair, which basically means that when you're writing the cream, you're taking it to somebody else. And when you're writing the crumbs, you're bringing it to us. And when I say cream and crumbs, I do not in any way mean it with respect to creativity. I mean it in terms of the market value that the publishers are looking at with. So let's be objective, let's be fair. But if you like something, put your heart and soul into it and do it. A lot of times, literary agents don't read the submissions themselves. They have their team who reads it, which is akin to how a lot of Bollywood actors also sign up their scripts. Their secretaries read that. And Akshay Kumar is the only person who reads the scripts himself. And I come from the same line of thought that how can I let another person decide what I will like or not? If I like it, then I'll represent it. I can't leave it to somebody else. So I think the intrinsic belief has to be there. And if you have the belief, then your job is to see it sail through.
So I have to say this because Suhail represents all of my books. I've done now 2 books with him. And I want to tell something to our audience. I really credit you because, the way you encourage people to write, like he's the one who would probably give you the freakiest of ideas and he'll be like, right. And it's my duty. I'll sell it. So, he gives you the wings in the air, to just go do whatever you want to. And if he's convinced with the content, either he's not, he'll tell you the way you can improve it. But it's like, for me as a writer, I think that's very liberating. And that's very
it has to be a process, as Affan will agree, that, creativity has to be a process where several people are involved. It has to be an exchange of ideas. It can't be my way or the highway.
So that way, I think I have found book makers as true literary partners, as also what you said, because he helps you from the get-go and then he takes the project, like he actually sees the project take shape, like jab tak publish nahi ho jata, marketing and pura, he'll help you. And Affan, my next question to you is actually following from his answer. As far as the submission process goes, I have seen, because I at one point of time when I was not with the book makers, I've actually tried submitting to the publishers as well. Publishers either like agented submissions or they like, they are not really keen on direct submissions from authors. I've seen with major publishers that's the case. I don't know if you also do that. But I think I want to ask you, how efficient is the submission process, you think? And is it in favor of the newbie authors? Because I think most of the bestsellers are lost in the submission process. People get too tired of the submission and rejection and submission and rejection, right?
Yeah, that's very true, because the standard submission process is to submit a small synopsis and maybe a couple of chapters, so that we take around 2 to 3 weeks to browse through it. And then we also do a market analysis and other checks. Yes, you are right, many bestsellers can get lost in it. But this is also important, because a publishing house has to see whether it goes with their ideology, their market, their interests, their readers. No. See, readers are through the distribution network. So we can distribute any book through our distributor. Readers, every publishing house, I have a special print line for my Punjabi books. So we know that our Punjabi market is like this. For Hindi, we have a separate print line. And for that, we have a different chain of supplying the books also. But yes, we have a kind of an ideology, the processes, the thoughts, the ideas which we want to stick to, and some ideas where we don't want to actually publish. It's our choice. My advisory board and managing body, they have said, okay, we'll have this year 5 children books on these topics. So we are looking for those kind of books, for example. Yeah.
So wonderful. So we have a literary agency's perspective here, and we have the perspective of a publisher. My next question is based on what happens when your manuscript has been accepted. So I'm sure most of you all want to know. Suhail, you work very closely with your authors after they have submitted their manuscript. You actually tell people to go back to the manuscript, edit certain sections, etc., etc. Now, once you have actually found a publisher for them, I'm sure you must be having authors, अरे ये तो बड़ा publishing house नहीं है, हमको ऐसा नहीं चाहिए. So I want to know, for our people out there, is it just a Penguin or a HarperCollins that makes a book a bestseller, or you have a different perspective on that to offer? And how many times do you get that question? Because I asked you that question.
So firstly, considering they're the sponsors, I think Rupa, Aleph and Speaking Tiger also make the cut. Okay. So no, but I think on serious note, see, everyone who writes to me always says that, we want to get published by the Harpers, Penguins and Rupas of the world. Everyone says that, and they're absolutely fine over there because there's nothing wrong in being aspirational. But what I always tell them is that, look, we will send it out because we have contacts and we have done several books with them in the past. But the point is that if everyone wants to get published by these three publishers, then there should be only these three publishers in the market. Nobody else should be existing. Why are we having so many books by so many other publishers? Because obviously there is a market. And secondly, and most importantly, that if everybody wants to work with these three, then these three will decide who they want to work with. So, that is very important. I think that is a learning that one needs. Secondly, and most importantly, what I feel is that any publisher who truly believes in your book is the best publisher for your book. I mean, of what use is it that you go to, say, X publisher, who is a well-known publisher, but they turn down your book, right? Of what use is that to me? It's no use. But if there's another publisher and he says that, look, this book is amazing, we would like to publish it, we would like to bring it out in the market, I think that is a publisher you should work with, because that publisher is showing faith in your vision, they're showing faith in your writing, and they're showing faith in your book. So anyone who shows that faith is the best publisher for that particular project. I think that is very important to know, because many times a book being turned down has got nothing to do with how well or not it has been written. Because you also need to understand that every publishing house has commercial considerations, and I also always say this, that when an author and a literary agent are working, they're working on the basis of quality. But when a publisher comes into play, commerce also gets added, because at the end of the day, it is a business. It is a creative business, but it is also a business, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. So there are publishing houses who do not take up fiction books, not because they aren't good, but because it's their company policy or the business plan for that particular year to not take up fiction books, because fiction is not selling. In fact, I have this running joke with certain people in the industry that, the bigger publishing houses have several sub-teams. Now, if you speak to these sub-teams, all of them will say that I'm looking at non-fiction, these are the topics. I'm looking at non-fiction, these are the topics. So you can send the book out to anyone out of them. They're all looking at the same thing. And the topics that nobody's looking at, they aren't looking at it. Now you need to understand why, because at the end of the day, these teams have their KRAs, and they have to see which team has performed well, how many sales have they got. So then they are choosing books to see how the commerce is working, not necessarily with respect to how good or bad a book may be. We spoke about fiction. I mean, let's talk about poetry, for example. The market for poetry, I know ma'am is over there, and, Affan was telling me that, scores and scores of loads and loads of copies being sold, and it's so heartening to know. But the point is that, usually poetry has a niche market because it usually doesn't sell in India. And I've got major publishers telling me that, Suhail, don't send us a poetry book because the market is very niche. So we can't take it up. So they will do poetry books, but the kind of poetry books they'll do are the ones that they are commissioning. So they'll probably get a Javed Akhtar or a Gulzar or a Vishal Bhardwaj to do a poetry book, or it'll be a translation of some, poetry collection into English. So that is very important. So I think if you know the market, you have to give a realistic picture to the readers. And if you give a realistic picture, then sooner or later they will understand.
So, Affan, on the same question to you, that, when a manuscript lands with you, are you more likely to accept a manuscript from a not so big a name, a newbie writer, or is it just the big names that publishing houses are looking for?
We have given platform to many people. There are many people who have come to us. Apart from publishing books, we have 3 magazines in Punjabi, Hindi, and English. And we have seen that how people who used to submit poetry or short stories, and now they have got the confidence.
Yeah.
Because many of our subscribers have also critiqued them and told them to write like this and that, and they have come up with their own books. Some of them we have helped with, some of them have gone to other publishers, but at the end of the day, we are happy that we gave them that push, that confidence that they can write.
I would say that, Affan, I have to compliment you because publishing houses like yours are too few, because I'm sure you've discovered some gems in the process by being so supportive of the community. Just the last question I think we have time for, and I want to ask you, Suhail, on the post submission, marketing. So once a book is out, I think we all see that a lot of marketing happens. If a person were to come to you and if they had written a manuscript and they had no social media presence to market their books, would you still take them on board?
As I said, yeah, I would take it up. I would also inform them that, if you aren't doing marketing, chances are that a publisher
Bestseller banta
may
hai, nahi
may
banta.
not take it up. See, I'll tell you why marketing is necessary. Marketing is necessary because there are scores of books out in the market. In the Indian market is so vibrant, there's so much talent, there's so many publishers, and they're all vying for space. They're vying for space not only in stores for sure, but also vying for success on Amazon, because how many books can you possibly browse at one point of time? So the point is that how do you make your book stand out? The first way is to at least make people be aware about the product. And that is how you have to do it. See, nobody else is going to come and say that you've written a good book. First, you have to have a belief in yourself that you've written a good one. There are many times authors write to me and say that, should I get this book published or not? And I say that, have you written a good book? And they say, yes, we think we've written a good book, but we aren't sure. So I said that let nobody else judge for you whether you've written a good book or not. If you think it's a good book, get it out in the market. Because creativity is something that you will never have 100% acceptance or a rejection rate. Sholay will not be liked by 100% of the people. Ram Gopal Verma's Aag will not be criticized by all 100% people. There'll still be a certain percentage who will be, saying things to the contrary. And yes, the idea is to appease or be in tune with a majority, but you can also take it as a learning experience. So that is where we help them. If they don't have social media presence, doesn't mean that they can't promote. You could still get newspaper coverage done. You could still launch your book.
We still have Rumi or Kabir or Premchand as the bestsellers today. Yeah. And that is because of the brand value. Now we have also seen that publishers and publishing houses are going behind big names. Like we have big politicians, their books are coming. It's a part of process of maybe brand building, which they are doing. Books are helping them because they still like the feel of having the book on their name. So yes, publishing marketing is very, very important. And author has to be ready to market the book. Like in olden times, we used to see in Bollywood, the project used to end once the film shoot used to end, last day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there also the process has changed. They also have to invest a lot of time
reality
and money
shows,
in
colleges, radio stations. So, I mean,
Kapil
that is
Sharma
pretty much
shows.
how it is.
Same has come for the books. You have to go to the festivals. You have to tell people that you have written. See, if you...
I think everyone will go to a lit fest. First, they have to be invited.
See, if you just want to write and tell people, then just put it on a Facebook or on a blog. But if you want the book to be sold, then you have to help your publishers, your agents, and tell the people, like, okay, this is my work and this is why you should buy it.
Thank you so much for that excellent tip. And with that, I think I have personally learned a lot from you guys. Suhail, thank you so much. Affan,
Just before we
you.
end, Vani's got a book over here, Seconds Later. It's a bestseller and it's available over there for anyone who wants to read it. You can get an autographed copy.
That's my book. It's called Seconds Later. It's been done by the book bakers. The cover is also by the book bakers. It's an excellent cover. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Antigala.
Thank you so much. Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I think I am also an author and I think I have found a way to make my books best-selling onwards. So thank you so much, Mr. Suhail Mathur, Mr. Affan Yesvi, and Ms.